My name's Nick Caravella. I work with Avogado Construction Technology Services. I was an architect by trade. I created a lot of information for the built environment, realized it didn't quite get to where it was going, and have since now worked with organizations to help build good data strategies so that we understand what our people and our communities and all of those different folks need in order to be more successful in the built environment. And since doing that, I come to Infra Day. This is actually my first time in New York, but I've been in Chicago and LA and gotten to know so many great people in the public sector working to create programs that create immense value for the communities that they serve. And excited to kind of lead this panel today and be moderator to look into what we're doing in the Northeastern Corridor to shape that urban transformation and meet the people with where they're at. And so enough about me. I want to turn it over to our wonderful panelists and give you each an opportunity to introduce yourselves before we get to talking about that transformation. So Laura, do you want to take us up?
Sure, I'd love to. And thanks to Ken and the Infra team for having me. And thanks, Nick, for kicking off this panel. I'm Laura Fritz. I'm the Division Director for Economic Opportunity in Frederick County, Maryland. And everyone's like, where's Frederick County, Maryland? We're 45 miles west of Baltimore, 45 miles north of Washington, D.C. We are the fastest growing county in the state of Maryland by fourfold, and we're the second fastest growing economy, which is all good news as an economic developer. However, it comes with a lot of infrastructure challenges, which we'll talk about today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leo Sang. I'm a principal transportation planner at the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. I have 25 years of experience in regional transportation and multi-resolution transportation modeling. That's a fancy word for that. But I am a strong advocate of autonomous vehicle integrations in our public transportations. We believe autonomous vehicle can be revolutionize our public transportation, which has not been innovated for a long time in this area particularly. So we hope that we bring in autonomous vehicle to the region, and I am the only one so far able to bring the autonomous vehicle into public space in this area. So in the last summer, we launched our self-driving service pilot in JFK Parking Lot 9, taking customers to the two air train station, to the air train station, yeah. And we have received very exceptional customer rating, 4.9 out of 5, which is very good. So look for more projects that we'll bring in the future in this area.
So before I do an introduction, I want to get a sense of who's in the room. I know it's been a long day and would prefer open dialogue instead of just us talking at you. So if you're in the public sector, raise your hand. Okay, a couple of folks. If you are a startup, raise your hand. No startups in the room. Okay. If you are in academia, raise your hand. Nonprofit sector? Consultant? Lots of consultants. Okay. Rest of corporate America? Okay. Well, hopefully we have something to share with each and every one of you because it's a really important topic that we are discussing today around the future of urban transformation, especially in the Northeast Corridor. My name is Stacy Matlin. I run our public sector innovation programs at a nonprofit called the Partnership for New York City. For those of you not familiar, the Partnership, we're a civically minded nonprofit where our members are the CEOs of the 300 largest employers in New York, with a mission to make New York the global hub of innovation, commerce, and upper mobility. And I run our programs. We have 3 public sector labs where we work with New York City and state agencies in the sectors of transit, water, and building regulations. And we run a process to help them understand how new technologies can solve their pressing challenges by recruiting startups from around the world to apply and facilitating a 2-phase testing process, which I'm happy to further discuss exactly what that means. But we work with the Port Authority as one of our partners. So we will share a little bit more about that as well.
Well, thank you. It's exciting to hear just the variety of different work that we have, whether it be economic development, driving the innovation partnerships, or helping drive people around with automated vehicles. So let's kick things off. I know each of you are involved in the variety of stages. And Laura, as you mentioned, you're the fastest growing county in Maryland. Wondering if you can share a little bit more of what it's like to have achieved that growth and how you're working now to respond to it.
Such a great question, Nick. And, we're really proud of the growth that we've seen. However, it has come with some challenges. Our biggest challenge is school construction. We have an $800 million school construction need, which means that any new residential development is almost being paused because we don't have adequate public facilities to meet the demand of this new housing growth that wants to occur in Frederick. The other challenge that we're seeing is that our infrastructure is undersized for the amount of development that's occurring. So, for example, we have a 300-acre site that we would love to unlock for economic development. It needs a $5 to $7 million pump station. Okay, so $5 to $7 million over 300 acres, not great, but you can feasibly finance that. It's the $67 million worth of system upgrade that we need to be addressing. Last but not least, we also have to talk about site readiness. The previous panel talked a lot about electric and the utility needs, and we're seeing that in Frederick County as well. The need for electric, for gas is unbelievable, and so we need to upgrade those systems as well. The challenge is we're a relatively small county. Even though we're the largest land, we have the fastest growing population, we're still relatively small, which means we don't have a lot of cash to put behind large projects like that. So I'm working with my peers across the state to create new state-enabling legislation that will allow us to create redevelopment agencies, that will allow for redevelopment, that will allow for school construction. And so we're really broadening our use of funds under the TIF Act, which we're very excited about. And it's something that will transform not just Frederick County, but communities across the state of Maryland.
And I think what's exciting about all the work that you're doing, and probably the corollary that it then ties with Stacy's work, is just, there is all of this innovation need, and you're running into these problems of, do we have enough money? Do we have enough demand? What are the kind of partnerships we need to create? And I'm wondering, Stacy, with your experience in the partnership side of the world, how has it been working with the variety of agencies that you do in enabling that transformation with them?
Yeah, ultimately, what was just shared is that there's a lot of complex challenges. We try to need new ways of thinking to do so. And it is difficult when government has the same set of tools to prescribe what specific solutions are needed. So essentially our procurement, our back-end systems are not really built to try and test new things and be quickly responsive outside of an emergency. And so what we've seen is that through the process, through opening up the problem space and really first defining a problem with a variety of stakeholders from the agencies, from operational staff to leadership, and then going out and recruiting startups from around the world and then facilitating a two-phase testing process to break this down into manageable parts. You can start attacking those really sticky issues of, we don't have enough money to do this. The permitting is going to be forever. How are we going to think about electrification of our region? It's a really tall task. And so, without breaking it down into its components and then understanding how new technologies can help, it is almost an impossible feat. So we have to figure out how to be more responsive and have to use technology as part of the strategy because climate change is waiting for nobody, and we need new ways of thinking and doing. So we've seen that figuring out different ways of iteratively testing and trying new things is can break that down. And it's important to get the top level stakeholders as well as operators at the bottom level of the hierarchy to really validate those solutions.
And I think that's where it becomes a nice way to kind of tie in then to Leo, where I'm just going to try to avoid using too many driving puns. But when we are taking on a program like automated driving and getting people around in a different way than we have and rethinking how transportation infrastructure even works. What has it been like to be part of these future focused programs and start to initiate them? You talked about the work that you were doing in JFK as an example.
I feel it very exciting because I can bring the future into right now, and then bring all the new technology to people. One thing I think the challenge about bringing technology or innovations to people is people unfamiliar with the technology. They are afraid of technology because they don't know. Let's say my project, right, autonomous vehicle. No one knows autonomous vehicles. particularly in this region. You heard about Waymo, you heard about other autonomous vehicle, but not in New York, New Jersey area. So the approach that we tackle that kind of challenges to bring technology to the people. So we do a lot of pilot. At the beginning, my agency even don't know what is the autonomous vehicle. They even they even say that there's no such things. Why do you want to test it? But I think I tell them that this is the things. This is the technology that mature right now. Let's bring it in to see whether it fit in our business, it fit in our customer service. That's why 2 years I start bringing the first vehicles into JFK. Let people touch it, build it, ride it, and then after that, people familiar with the technology, they feel like it's just typical vehicle without a wheel, without a driver. Then they realize that we can use it. And then after 2 years, I have been consistently have people coming back to me and say that, what if I can use your vehicle in my area, like port, aviation, airport, even in our future bus terminal?
So it's interesting. And has anyone taken a Waymo or an automated vehicle before? Do you know
You like it?
How'd you like it? Good?
Right. I like this.
Yeah, I was in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago and I took my first ride.
Actually, after you take a first ride, the second ride is like very normal because you feel safe. It's not anything different from our regular vehicles. As long as you can hand off to the computer to drive you to the destinations.
And I think you touched on the important part of what I call from the architecture world is the tactility. Like how do we put things in place that people can touch and become more familiar with? Even talking about like the power grid and seeing what is almost like a nuclear arms race with data centers right now of how can we get nuclear power plants to generate the power we need for AI and meet this incredible demand that we're creating on the innovation that we're seeing. And I think I want to kind of turn this back to you, Stacy, and where your team kind of works as an accelerator of sorts with these kinds of programs. How has your work helped public agencies kind of fail fast and get to action more quickly?
Yeah, I think that we have there's 3 key value propositions that we provide that I think it's not just native to us, that other organizations could take part of, and there's a really key part of the testing process. So the first thing is that the fact that we enable essentially a reverse procurement or a leading by challenges and really defining the challenges instead of being super solution specific, because in a traditional government RFP or RFI, it's, here's our very specific solution we want, and here, tell me how I'm going to procure a bus. Instead, it's like, I have challenges with fleet electrification. So tell me all of the possible solutions. Startups, you're the innovators, or companies, you're the innovators. Tell me what is possible. And then we facilitate that iterative testing process. The second is hosting a safe and trusted space for testing. And so we facilitate that. And that's a really important fact, that we identify those pain points. And we also focus on agency pain points. So if I'm an operator and it takes me, I'm going to give an example from the Port Authority where Port Authority, from the engineering team, they, in order to look at pavement markings and to understand when potholes need to be repaired, the previous process of understanding those pavement markings is an engineer would go out to the field and they would mark, yep, the paint looks like it's needs to be updated here, and maybe we'll put this in a capital plan. And it was an incredibly manual process, and it takes valuable engineering hours to go out and do that manual survey. So if you can say, hey, I have technology that actually could save you time and help you do your job more efficiently and better, we were able to do that. And get back to that point in 1 minute, where we had a company that was able to save engineering time 21%, reduced amount of time, and gather data 3 times as efficiently by using AI and dash cam footage to do that process automatically instead of manually. So really having a defined test period that's safe and trusted, and working with both companies and the agencies to help define those value propositions is really important. And then the third piece, I think, is having a trusted third-party facilitator. So we, as the Partnership for New York City, we have no dog in the fight. We are just trying to accelerate the understanding of how new technologies can be applied. So we're the ones that are holding both the startups and the agencies accountable. We set goals and KPIs, and we make sure that there's measurable, actionable success metrics so that you can clearly demonstrate at the end of the test, here's how much time or money we have saved. And therefore, it's an easier sell back up to the decision makers at the top to say, here's why we should or shouldn't use this, and facilitate that go, no go process. So that's the sort of model that could be applied. It's not unique to us. Anybody who's trying to understand how new technologies can solve some of their pressing civic challenges can use that sort of approach.
And I think to kind of just expand on that one for a little bit, I run a podcast for our company as well, and I had an organizational psychologist come on and talked a lot around this idea of empathy. And when we identify pains and we start to develop solutions, sometimes we can forget, I guess, the people who are going to be impacted by that solution. So what has it been like to engage the communities and perhaps include them on this journey? Right, wrong, and otherwise, because I know sometimes not everybody always knows what they need and they have an idea of what they want. And so what is it like to kind of bring everyone along together? And maybe that's more of a round robin question to throw at y'all.
Oh, I'd love to start on that. So one of the biggest challenges I think facing the United States overall is just misinformation and the sort of perpetuation of untruths. And because of that, we're seeing, especially in an area like Frederick County, where there's such substantial growth surrounded by communities that are also growing, the community doesn't want to be like Baltimore, doesn't want to be like Bethesda, doesn't want to be like Northern Virginia. So they know what they don't want, but nobody can tell you what they do want. And so I would say one of the biggest challenges we're facing as we're looking at all of these challenges is the community pushback of how they don't want schools built in certain places. They don't want new infrastructure. They don't want electric utility lines coming in through their properties. And so we have basically defined a term in economic development calling people community representatives cave people, which are, citizens against virtually everything, because that's what we're seeing in our community. And it's a wonderful challenge, but I will say that we have tried to engage. We have public meetings. We throw out maps. We ask them, please tell us where you would like development to happen. And then we just get yelled at about all of the things they don't want. So it's been an evolution. And I love this idea of having a third party that kind of provides that guidance about technologies and ways to move forward ideas and not have it come from government, because ultimately I report to an elected official. And so I always have to be very mindful of her positions and her community and her voters. So I love the idea of potentially having a third party step in and help us. So thanks. I'm going to steal that idea from this.
Is there anything you want to add to that, Stacy, in terms of the engagement?
I think just being real about the pain points and somebody in the community can be like, hey, like I need to get to work faster, and therefore they could be prescribing their solutions and be like, I want a direct taxi for me, and this is the only solution, and government should pay for it. You as government can be like, hey, how about what is your real pain point? You want to get to work faster? How can we improve frequencies? How can we improve the user experience and make you understand travel times better so you can better plan to use public transit? There's different ways to go about. And so it's really just solidifying when you hear pain points, not so much taking that literally word for word, but trying to distill that into the value prop that you need to solve for. And I think just one example we did with the Transit Tech Lab is a company called Navalens, which I don't know if you've been around in the streets of New York, for those of you who are visiting, if you've seen those colorful QR codes that are outside the subway stations. That's a company called Navalens, and if you download the app, you can get real-time information about the train or bus that is coming, and if you are of low vision, you can get real-time step-by-step directions there, and if English isn't your first language, you can get that information in your native language about real-time transit information. And that's an example of a company that went through the Transit Tech Lab. We did a lot of customer engagement. People said they wanted more accessible information. we're able to demonstrate how this sort of solution is really positive and brings value. And so being responsive and having different ways to quickly test new technologies and being having that as a success metric has been really great to see.
That one is interesting. I have that on my app too. I try it all the time. Yeah, it's fun. In my agency, we instead of like, I think most of the government agencies don't want to do a lot of things when they come to like technology, but we try to change our culture. We ask our employee to think of their problem and find the solutions and come up with a solution and then bring it to our executive to pitch the idea that we want to try the technology to help us in business, help us in the daily work. That is how that's how I come up with my idea of autonomous vehicle to bring forward to the facility and then try that out. That is our new like changing culture in our agency.
And I kind of wanted to expand on that too, so I'm glad you jumped in there, is this idea of kind of the incrementality of it. And we needed kind of, eat the elephant one bite at a time. And so I'm curious, what was the ingredients of success? Like, why JFK? How did that create a successful environment for autonomous vehicle testing?
I think one of the success is we have a lot of buy-in from the beginning from the management. So the management was very supportive about helping us to test all technology, not just by saying like green light to our internal agency, but also by providing funding to test out all this technology. That's very important because without budget, you cannot do anything, right? So it's important. And then we are not just like unlimited funding, of course, but we are competing funding. What is it fun to pitch to the idea to in front of our executive and then compete for funding, just like all consultants compete for funding for the government, right?
So were there moments of, and Sally, you might want to add something before we jump ahead and go for it.
Yeah, I think Port Authority's iHub idea is a really great example that other government agencies should steal, where they essentially have this pot of funds and it encourages like a new culture of innovation where it really puts the onus on the project managers within the operating agencies to say, hey, I have an idea. I think this idea can save the agency time, money, effort, and here's the exact solution. Here's the funding I'm requesting. And it helps build this internal capacity for what a smart business decision makes. And so not only are you able to experiment and try new things, but it helps build a better culture of decision making and really using data to inform those business strategies.
I love that idea of like a special project slush fund that can go around. We're toying around with that, or even at our own company, of just trying to, we all have people that we have to respond to, billable, funds that we have to manage. And, how do we create room for that innovation and experimentation that generally when I'm talking to folks is like, you're putting fires out all day long. So, how do you find the time to prioritize these things, especially, and the budget to prioritize these things? Are there challenges around finding the human resource aspect, and how has any of your agencies responded to getting the people behind it as much as the money aspect of things?
I will say that the county executive, Jessica Fitzwater in Frederick County, came in with a fail first mentality. Take the risk, try the thing, and let's see if it works. And so, part of the reason why we're looking at creating a redevelopment agency, so taking everything from school construction to infrastructure outside of government and creating a separate legal entity, is specifically because we know that we can fail faster by going to this other entity. We can hopefully not just fail fast, but we can also succeed faster. Because now we don't have to go through some of the same processes that were so kindly pointed out by Stacy, our procurement process, our budgeting process. And so having this separate legal entity to accomplish these big challenges, I think is going to make things so much easier for us.
It's wonderful. And I know we're kind of wrapping up within the last 5 minutes here. I always try to make sure we ask a final question of, if you were able to kind of advise yourself a couple of years back and be taking on this kind of thing, or for anybody in the audience who's now listened to this and is now thinking about what they should be doing, what's one piece of advice that you'd leave yourself with or them with before they get started?
I can start. I think is keep talking about that technology you are trying to use or bring in, because familiarity is the key to your success. So particularly for all the new technology, people don't know about it, talk about it, talk to anyone, talk to your peer, talk to your neighbor, try to get as much information as possible, either good or bad, because as long as the people familiar with your idea, they were more acceptable to your idea and more easily for you to implement your technology and even ask for money too.
I love that, Leo, because you're absolutely right. The more people you talk to, you're not going to have the light bulb go off in everyone, but you just need it to go off on the right one.
Yeah.
So talk to everybody and anybody you can.
I'd say just be really good at succinctly defining your problem. And then if you're trying to do new things, understand how that new solution can solve a real problem, and then be able to distill the key value proposition. So how is this saving specific time? How is this saving money? How is this improving customer experience? And being able to succinctly capture that and share that can make that adoption of anything new you're trying to change even more compelling.
Thank you. Well, we have a little bit of time left. I'm curious if anyone in the audience might have a question that they might want to ask the panel.
Sure. Yeah. You still all right?
My question. How on the
Mhm.
okay.
I joined Portfolio like 7 years ago, and since then I started talking about autonomous vehicle application in public transportation. But not until 2000, like 3 years ago, then we have the project. That means I have like took me 4 years to talk about that idea with everyone, from our executive to our peers, about autonomous, so how it is possible to bring in an autonomous vehicle to our public space, because public space is a difficult space. We have a lot of authority to buy in. Luckily, we have our own facility that we can try our technology. But if we are going to like bring it back to the like New York City street, then there will be a lot of like coordinations. Luckily, I would like to expand that one. But for now, we're just testing in our facility. That it make it a little bit easier. As long as I can buy in from our facility, our executive, our general manager of the facility, then we can test it out.
Great. And I think that really kind of summarizes up is like great things happen when great people come together. And the great people are only going to come together when we're talking about great ideas. So there is an effort of socialization and evangelization and popularization, blah, 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 of getting people to come along with you and finding the people who want to come along with you. Not everybody needs to be as passionate about the things we're passionate about, and that's totally okay. There's other things that for other people to be passionate about too. So I want to thank all the panelists for your time. I want to thank Ken and the InfraDay team for putting this wonderful conversation and all the conversations together. And thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you.